Disruption is a word that entered the vernacular thanks to Clayton Christensen. Much of what strategy talked about incorporated the idea of disruption, but not as explicitly as Christensen made the point. If you look at Michael Porter's 5 Forces and you look at substitutes, let's start there, right? So there's industries, and industries are groups of firms that compete with each other. And then there are industries that don't compete directly, but do compete somewhat for the same customers. So Porter told us that a substitute was something that sandwiched the industry in. It was something that was cheaper, but somewhat worse, or it was better, but more expensive. So the industry sort of was between the two, and innovation was really the key to fending off these so-called substitute products. Clayton Christensen, his point was, what if it's cheaper and better? I think a lot of things called disruption are not cheaper and better. They're better maybe, for example, because they free ride on analog industries. If you can, to be provocative, steal the content from analog firms and distribute it more costlessly, is that disruption? I think it's free riding. I guess what maybe many people wouldn't have guessed is how many firms have successfully made businesses by avoiding the costs of creating, for example, music content or video content, but free riding on others, and using that free ride as sort of the basis for a business. And then I think we excitingly label this disruption in its best iteration. Disruption is the observation that products have features customers don't really value, or some customers don't value. If we eliminate these features, we eliminate a bunch of cost, and we have a product as good, maybe arguably better, that's cheaper. So if we think about music labels and how they created content for people interested in musical output, they had long setup times, long relationship periods that they had with artists. The means they used to record the music was very expensive. Well, what if there is another way to get music to your ear? If I do it by circumventing copyright, though, not only do I get to take advantage of a very cheap delivery mechanism, right, converting it to digital and sending it to you that way, I also get to avoid all the development costs, etc. So there's a piece of digital delivery that is, in fact, disruption. But then there's an aspect of, Napster back in the day, and some of these other music sharing sites that are still online right now, that I think we're really overly flattering them by calling them disruptive. One thing we have to ask is, are the revenue models and are the earners of the revenues the ones who are creating the content to the extent that we highly value it? In other words, video content, musical content, these are very, very expensive to create if we want them created to a certain standard. And so we have to, in fact, have in place some revenue models that enable the entities that undertake these costs to benefit. And we see with the state of the music industry today, the revenues are such that they're being accrued by not the producers of the content, but the exploiters of the content. We're going to have to, in some respect, kind of figure out how to right the ship here and how to monetize the content while enjoying the benefits of eliminating costs we didn't value. So there's a lot of work to be done.